Well, welcome back, you absolute stellar legends. Today we're going to be hopefully making a video that's going to be released before tomorrow, which is the Dragon Age Veilguard. Jesus Christ, I can't believe it's already upon us. So I did pre-order my copy of Dragon Age Veilguard. I will be playing it on day one. I might be a few hours late. Today we're going to be reacting to Skill Up's review of the game and talking about why we have to be cautious about the reviews that we're going to be seeing leading up till today. So the video was released a couple of days ago. So we're going to be reacting to it now. I'm going to try and do this as fast as possible. His video is 46 minutes. So I'm going to try and make this as short as I could. So it might be about an hour. I might even do this as a two-parter. We'll see. All right, so we're going to start the video in 3, 2, 1. Now.
This video is brought to you by Brilliant. Pick up a new skill or just learn more about things like science, math, engineering, computer science, and so much more thanks to Brilliant's accessible and interactive courses. Try everything Brilliant has to offer for free for 30 days and get 20% off an annual subscription by visiting brilliant.org/skillup. Click the link below to get started or stick around to the end of the video to learn more.
Not bad.
I want to begin this review the same way I did my Final Fantasy 16 review, which is to say that reviews are opinions. This is my opinion and my opinion only. I expect that there will be a broad range of opinions on Dragon Age the Veilguard, and I encourage you to seek them out. I do not have a monopoly on truth. As I've said many times before, I'm just a nerd with a microphone and a YouTube account. My opinion is no more or less valuable than anybody else's. Okay?
Exactly.
Alright, so Dragon Age the Veilguard is a colossal disappointment. I really can't put it any other way. I spent 50 hours playing this, and it was time I desperately wish that I could get back.
Alright, so I watched a few people that got review copies of the game, Skill Up, and as well two people that stood out were Skill Up and Maddie Plays. So both of these guys have played over 40 hours of the game. And both of them have pretty much said the same thing. The game is bad throughout the game. Maddie did say, as I posted in my short, he played for 45 hours, and only 5 of those hours were good, and that was only the last 5 hours of the game. So the game does get good, but you have to waste 40 of your hours to get there. So these guys are professional gamers, they're reviewers, so they speed run the games per se. So Maddie's 45 hours is going to likely be my 60 hours because I like to adventure in the game, but I think I will be speed running this game. And he's going to say this in a minute, but I will be playing it on the easiest difficulty they can give me, as long as it's not a infinite health and whatever. I am going to be playing it on a very easy setting just so I could breeze through the game. I'm getting it from GameStop. I have a platinum account, and that means I have at least 3 days to play the game, 3 to 5 days to play the game, and then return it, no questions asked.
I started having my doubts at around the 10-hour mark. I was thoroughly checked out at the 20-hour mark, and the remaining 30 hours were just excruciatingly painful.
Bro, even 10 hours, man. A game has to grab you within the first hour of the game. If you don't like a game within 1 hour, it is absolutely valid. Your opinion is absolutely valid if you don't like the game after an hour. You tried the game, you gave it. An hour is a lot of our time today. Don't forget, people work 8 hours a day, right? We have so few hours afterwards.
I was forced to suffer through the endless morass of banality that is Dragon Age the Veilguard. In many ways, Veilguard is a bigger disappointment than Anthem was. Like, if I was to hand LeBron a tennis racket, I'd expect to see some pretty shitty tennis. BioWare never had any business making a looter shooter, and so when Anthem flopped, its failure was easily explained, easily reconciled. But if I hand LeBron a basketball, I expect to see some fucking points on the board, and it's impossible to imagine a bigger home court advantage.
Alright, I want to backtrack 2 seconds.
Some fucking points on the board, and it's impossible to imagine a...
She's got pecs. She got boobs, but she's also got pecs. And there's always been something that always stood out to me, and that's the eyes. They all have this sedated, this medicated look about them where they're all like this. Hey, how's it going? Can you imagine watching a video and this is my basic expression throughout the entire game? I am so angry right now. Oh my god, what is going on today? Oh! That is exactly what it looks like. There's no animation, like there's no life behind these eyes. Like they look like they're heavily medicated.
Bigger home court advantage than this for BioWare. The Dragon Age franchise, one of their most beloved and most successful. No pressure from EA to cram in all sorts of live service bullshit like it was meant to have at one point, but they pivoted away from that years ago. There's no in-game cash up here. There's obviously plenty of development time and budget.
Apparently she's extremely
annoying.
Freedom
for BioWare
that,
to make a
BioWare-ass
BioWare game
apparently.
without any compromises and without any excuses.
Look how stupid these characters look, man. You can't have a dark atmosphere, dark theme when your characters, first of all, look sedated and generic, and then your enemies look like cartoons.
In no way, shape, or form did BioWare meet the moment and capitalize on the opportunity that was handed to them. Dragon Age the Veilguard apes the most superficial elements of a BioWare game.
Like, this guy here, to me, stands out the most from all the characters. I don't know what it is about him. He also looks like Jesse Ventura. You might know him as Governor Jesse Ventura. Jesse the Body Ventura. But he stands out the most. Like, he looks like the most realistic character in the game. And he seems to have a little bit more life behind those eyes.
Making no effort to modernize.
And look, this is the Rook that Skill Up created. Like, look. He looks like fat Jay Cutler. If you're a bodybuilder, you know fitness, you know who I'm talking about. But he looks like a fat Jay Cutler.
What is a now fairly dated formula while delivering absolutely none of the writing, characterization, and imagination that made its previous games so great. The writing is frankly terminal. It lacks.
Bro, writing will make or break your game. Your game looks like this, plays like this, sounds like this. I'll let him
any nuance or wit or wisdom. It cannot communicate ideas except to say them aloud to the camera. It manufactures petty, unbelievable tension because it doesn't know how to create anything more real, and it's too scared to ever be truly confronting or dark.
Well, the reason why they can't do that is because these people have no life experience, and the only human interaction they have with people is on Twitter.
Fear that it might make the audience uncomfortable.
Hey, Dragon Age, the Twitter guard.
Every interaction between the companions feels like HR is in the room, and every interaction led by the main character, Rook, sounds like he's addressing an under-12 soccer team before a semi-final, or teaching toddlers how to properly share toys.
Because they're children, that's why. They have the mentality of children. They have severe arrested development.
The way you build relationships with your companions is so woefully outdated. Drawn-out quest lines completely divorced from the main plot, starring disposable villains and recycling the same settings, enemies, and bosses you find elsewhere. The romance system feels equally antiquated, heavily reliant on the "will bang, okay?"
And I like your... What kind of flirting is that? I like your rambling. No, rambling is somebody that drones on, and on aimlessly.
Button, even when it doesn't make.
Like, I don't even know if any of these people have ever had any relationships, like boyfriend, girlfriend, boyfriend, because this is very, very... I could listen to you ramble all... No, the right word is I could listen to you talk all day. Talk is different than rambling. What I'm doing right now is talking to you. Rambling is I start talking about something and then I interject something else completely off topic, veer off to another topic over here about Kleenex, and then start talking about olive oil, and then start talking about my shoe, and then, oh, what was I talking about? Oh, I have no idea. I was just rambling. Nobody likes a rambler, especially as a romantic trait.
Sense for that to be an option with no support.
I don't know. I'm just a 40-year-old guy that has life experience and has had multiple girlfriends throughout my life. And actual friendships with both men and women of multiple races, cultures, and things like this. I myself am a Greek man.
Supporting systems behind it to make your romance decisions feel believable or consequential. The world design is so weird. I have never encountered worlds quite like this. They feel more like Overwatch maps than actual explorable spaces, and they're littered with puzzles so mind-numbingly stupid that I wonder how little BioWare must think of our ability to solve puzzles. And the combat is like, man, shallow is too kind a word. The lack of enemy variety, the sponginess of those enemies, how limited your control over party members is.
Bro, it's all particles everywhere. That's really what a like, it's very distracting. Like, it's one thing like having flames and stuff like that. That is actual, like, at least it's structured. But this is just dots and lines like flashing everywhere, and it is very, very messy to look at. Look at this, look at this.
It all makes combat so utterly mindless and so breathtaking.
And of course, we have the stupid looking, silly, comical enemies that are supposed to be intimidating you. No, these people have no idea what intimidation is. Mean words is intimidation to these people. Bro, I can scare the crap out of any of these guys if I ever walked into a room pissed off. That's why I always smile.
Repetitive. Let me put it this way. I spoke to two other reviewers who both ended up lowering the difficulty to the easiest setting, not because it was hard, but because it was just so drawn out and so boring. I've never done.
Usually when I'm playing, like doing a live stream or I'm recording a video for gameplay, I usually play on either easy or normal, depending on, because, you know, I want the video to flow and go fast. I don't want you guys to watch me dying over and over and over to one part. I usually increase the difficulty in my private time, but for this game, just like I did with the other garbage games, I will use the easiest setting because I refuse to let the game beat me, and I refuse to spend more time than I have to on this game.
That before for any game that I've reviewed, but I did it at the 40-hour mark here, and I swear to God, I wish I did it 20 hours earlier. I know how brutal all of this sounds, and I want to be super clear that I desperately wanted it to be different. I really, really did. I am aware of the stakes surrounding this game and what it
his eyes magenta. He's been woke.
Means for BioWare's future, and I was praying so hard that
BioWare. It looks so stupid. Like, yes, magenta is tied to cosmic horror, but magenta is also tied to something else, which is why they do it. If you do some research on the LGBT and the color magenta, you will realize why it's called the bisexual color and things like that. Not a homophobic statement, it is historical. Do your research.
BioWare's next game would be a fucking banger, and that the future of the studio would be secure, and that we'd all be looking forward to a Mass Effect game. But I cannot say any of those things, because the honest truth is that barring a few exceedingly rare moments...
apparently, the team that's working on the next Mass Effect, apparently, I think it is BioWare, but it also might be a different team, and they are working overtime to make sure that we understand that it's not the team that made this game. Endymion mentioned that in his video today.
There wasn't a single aspect of Dragon Age the Veilguard that I actually enjoyed, and there are very few games that I play that I can say that of.
See, okay, watch the eyes. It's all the same crap.
I know you're hurt, Nev, but the rest of us need to do...
Like, I refuse to believe that everybody that's doing customized characters or whatever just decides to choose the same. Maybe these are the default eyes, but you would figure if you guys want to make your character look different or unique, you're going to use different eyes. But NPCs and other gameplay characters, they all have that dead eye as well.
Something.
Now, some parts of the game, like the world, some of the parts
Like
of the
most
world
BioWare games,
look fantastic. Hey, Kevin Hart. Good to see you, Kevin Hart. And this is the Canary. I don't know what character I'm going to create, but I think it is going to be... Anyways, we'll see.
Dragon Age the Veilguard begins here in character creation. It is flexible in the sense that it has plenty of options and sliders.
Bro, wake up. Open
But it's
your
all
eyes.
limited by one central constraint, and that's the game's very stylized aesthetic. Characters do not look like real people. They look like Pixar or DreamWorks characters.
I
You
like
think
the
I'm exaggerating?
Look at this. Burn this image into your mind.
This is
Prince Charming.
Prince Charming from Shrek.
Da da da.
Are you going to tell me this man wouldn't slot right into the Veilguard?
It looks so weird, man. It just looks so overly effeminate, man. There's just something so overly effeminate about this look.
Aesthetic, man, you could drop him in right now as a companion character and no one would bat an eyelid. It's obviously a choice that BioWare made. You don't accidentally end up with characters that look
how
like this.
weird
On one
this
hand,
looks.
I respect it because they really
Look how weird this looks, man. It is... You know, here's another thing that I love. I'm criticizing a video game character. I'm not going on real people's pictures and criticizing what they look like. What I'm doing is I'm criticizing something that has been controlled and designed to look a certain way, and it's designed for us to laugh at. But then you're going to have people that are going to come after me, making fun of the way I look. I've had no work done on me, first of all, but I'm also a human being. I'm not criticizing the way you look. I'm criticizing a video game, a fictitious game character. How have people become so blinded by this stuff that they decided to start fighting for the government, fighting for companies, fighting for corporations like they're foot soldiers, man? It's freaking crazy.
swung for something different here.
Arrested
Absolutely.
Development.
On the other hand, I really dislike how this
Schizophrenics cannot tell the difference between reality and something that is fake, and they also can't. They have a hard time distinguishing where they begin and where you end. It's called boundaries.
characters look. I just don't like it. And I think it's a massive downgrade versus what this series has previously offered. Like, this is the new Morris.
Yeah, so this is Morgan, and I don't know why they decided to give her the outfit of Shiva from Mortal Kombat 11, but it looks very odd. It looks very odd.
For example. If you've never played Dragon Age before, then this might not mean anything to you, but if you have played it, then this rendition is gonna look pretty weird. There are other returning characters making cameos in this game, stuff BioWare has asked us not to spoil, so I can't show it to you, but putting the new models side by side with the old models, it's pretty crazy to see how much worse they look here in Veilguard. Nothing compares, though, to what they did to the Kunari.
Bro, look at these boobs, man. Look at these boobs. You can put an entire hand between them. Yeah, and this one too. Jeez, man.
Like, holy hell, I have no idea what they were thinking. This is how they used to look in the Inquisition. Like, truly badass and intimidating. And this is how they look in Veilguard. I mean, how on earth could BioWare have landed on these designs and thought, yep, that's it, ship it? The Kunari redesign looks comically bad, and it's also kind of lazy because now instead of looking like a truly distinct race with a different facial structure, the Kunari now...
And then we have this...
just look like humans with horns. It really sucks. These character designs are distracting and they weaken the game's ability to deliver emotional moments. I don't think your characters need to look realistic.
See what I mean? Like, they all have that deadpan, soulless, sedated
For you to have a strong connection to them. There are millions.
Oh, and look. don't think that this was not purposeful. So you have her. So she's got surprisingly bigger breasts than I would have expected to see in this game. But she's got big breasts, and she's got the cleavage. But she is nowhere near as attractive as this character. And you can tell that this character has smaller breasts. And the shadow is covering her cleavage. But they want you to look at the annoying one.
Of games that disprove that point. But this uncanny valley thing, this half human, half cartoon thing, it catches on the eye the same way an off note catches on the ear. It's hard not to be distracted by just how odd everyone looks. And in the more tense, emotional scenes, I found that their fake plastic faces made it harder for me to buy into whatever emotional distress they were selling.
Yep.
This is further compounded by BioWare's approach to facial animations, which is extremely outdated in 2024, especially for a game where you spend so much time looking at characters' faces. Like, take this example, when my character is angrily trying to convince the Grey Warden.
Okay, I was wrong about this character. Like he does have a better character model, but even he has the sedated eyes.
To act.
We don't have time to play Who's the Greyest Warden. You need to shut up and listen. The threat is real. The gods...
Alright, this is gonna be me doing a nitpick. The threat is real? Is real? Come on, tell me that these guys don't all have pro-Palestine flags in their bios next to their other flags. I guarantee you.
are coming, and they're bringing the blight.
The way that he said Israel, like he said as if it was one word, not the threat is real. He said the threat is real.
With them.
Or this clip when Rook is dressing down the team after a setback.
Last I checked, there are 2 gods out there. They've got plans, and we're falling behind. And if it wasn't clear enough after Demeter's crossing, it's clear now. They'll rain disease and death across Thedas unless we stop them.
In both instances, you really
Facial
can't
animation,
see
man.
the emotion that the voice actor is delivering.
See?
Compare
He
those to
said it.
this outburst from Cassandra 9 years ago in Dragon Age Inquisition.
Then we looked for Hawk, but he was gone too. We thought it all connected, but no. It was
She
just
might be a bit
you.
more grizzled in this
You
game,
kept
but
him from
it's a better aesthetic.
us.
Now look, for my money, Cassandra's face here looks angry and expressive. I'm not only hearing her rage, but I am seeing it
And her, you can tell that she's concerned because her brow is furrowed and she's got an appropriate expression. Whereas the other one, I am so angry.
too. And Veilguard never manages to make these two things line up. Setting aside the more contemporary comparisons you could make to stuff like Baldur's Gate 3 or
loathe
Cyberpunk
the
or
character of this
Guardians of the
character.
Galaxy, BioWare was doing faces and facial animations better nearly a decade ago, and that sadly is commentary that could be extended to almost every aspect of Dragon Age the Veilguard. The one exception to this, I think, is the visual design of environments, which are regularly stunning. I don't like how these spaces are laid out or what you do in them.
Yeah, see, that's what I said. The game does look visually good, like the world, that is. Characters, not so much.
But they do look really nice. There's a range of settings from cityscapes to forests to darkened swamps to old hollowed out Grey Warden fortresses, and they all look great in their own way. They each feel visually cohesive with unique architectural styles and color palettes that create a very strong sense of space and place. As I said, I never enjoyed being in these environments, but I did enjoy looking at them. I will also say that Veilguard runs extraordinarily well on a high-end PC, which doesn't always happen all the time, by the way, right?
Alright, so I'm going to cut it over here and then I'm going to get to the more critical stuff afterwards. Alright, and now we're going to move to the second part of the video where he starts actually talking about the writing, which is one of the most important parts of this game.
Looking at the writing underpinning all of this.
I wield the power of the blight. People are dying right now. You need to listen. My cousin is still alive. And you didn't think to tell me. Bring that first one down!
Okay, so we're going to talk about
yes,
the writing
the
of this game now,
garbage
and in so
mold
doing, I'm
dragon.
going to spoil some minor things. No major events or reveals, but some little stuff, so if you're sensitive to that, then you can skip ahead to the timestamp on screen. I'll give you a minute to do that now. Okay, here we go. Dragon Age games have, generally speaking, been pretty dark. I mean, the first game opens with a ritual where you drink demon blood to join a sacred order, and one of the other guys doesn't survive that ritual. He just kind of dies right there on the spot, and then another guy freaks out, and he's like, no, please don't make me do that. And then Duncan, who's conducting the ritual, knows that there's no way to back out of this ceremony, so he murders that dude in cold blood before whispering in his ear,
I am sorry.
Now, if that moment is like an 8 out of 10 in terms of how dark you might expect your fantasy to be, Dragon Age the Veilguard never gets above like a 2 or a 3 out of 10. It was genuinely shocking to me to see just how safe and cheery and bright and G-rated this whole thing was. Like, genuinely shocked, because there are precisely 0 moments where something happens that made me go, oh shit, alright, now we're talking. I used the word banality in my intro, and one of the biggest reasons this game feels so banal is because when you eventually realize that nothing bad is ever going to happen, you stop hoping for something interesting or surprising to happen. You just surrender yourself to the endless stream of predictable, inoffensive fantasy tropes. In place of more serious, more dark events and characters is the embrace of a more playful, silly tone. It's about keeping it light, like Balara here, talking about the fact that 2 elven gods are now out to destroy the world.
Oh, you know, just finding out that 3 of my gods are out there trying to end the world. Why wouldn't I be okay?
Emmerich is a necromancer, and I know that sounds a little scary, raising the dead and commanding them as your minions, but don't worry, BioWare is not going to let you get freaked out by all that scary death stuff. Emmerich happens to be a lovely old gentleman. He is dapper, he is proper, he delights in pleasantries, and he has a servant, a lovable skeleton named Manfred, who happily dotes on Emmerich and screeches with glee whenever he's mentioned.
And that is actually how they react in real life when one of them gets mentioned, one of them gets attention, because they are attention-starved people. So that is the perfect representation of all of these leftist morons. These activists that are making our games.
He's not the only companion with a pet though. Davram also has a baby griffin named Asan, and he can be a little rowdy sometimes.
Did he say Asan? Yeah, Asan. I wonder if that's a reference to Hasanabi.
It's like here when Manfred and Asan are squabbling over something.
Okay, that's enough.
It looks so stupid, man, with those things in his eyes.
Fine. Who wants a treat?
Now look, I know that you could go back to previous Dragon Age games and pull the same clips that show the same lighthearted silliness. Lighthearted fun and humor has always been a part of every great BioWare game. But what I'm trying to communicate here is that there's a lot more of these moments
you get that
in
armor
Veilguard,
with a pre-order.
But more importantly, there's a complete absence of anything dark to counterbalance them. As such, the overall tone of this game is silly and juvenile. Its unwillingness to confront darker themes also extends to a total unwillingness to create any meaningful conflict between.
And people are impressed by the realism of these bruises. I'm surprised that they don't actually know what bruises and scrapes look like, because many of these people have been bullied for a good part of their life, so they should know what a black eye looks like, what a bloody lip looks like. It does not look like that. Was my comment mean-spirited? Yes, but it's reality. It's what happens to many unlikable people. There's reasons why people get bullied. It's not always just a targetless act. Some people get bullied for the way they act. And most of these people, that's what happens.
In companions. Conflict between companions is a really important part of these sorts of cinematic RPGs. It not only creates narrative tension, but also forces important gameplay decisions. Like, who do you side with in a real moment of truth situation, right? Dragon Age...
So, he talks about this later on, but apparently there's almost no dialogue that would create conflict between your characters, if I remember correctly.
The Veilguard has none of that. Zero. Companions never have prolonged, substantive disagreements about anything. They just get along. almost all the time. And when they do express some sort of disagreement about something, it is so lukewarm and then resolved so quickly that the whole thing feels entirely cosmetic. Like, during a mission, Lucanus makes a mistake and Davram calls him out on it very briefly. And I was like, oh, okay, maybe this is the start of the first inter-team conflict. Nope.
Oh, but we gotta have that man chest exposed, right? That's what they really want to see.
Like, an hour later,
And,
the very
there
next
is a
conversation
bulge slider as
we
well.
all have together is this.
You two done fighting then? I can't have you at each other's throats.
Lucanus is still an assassin. Kills people for money.
And Davran's still self-righteous. Judgmental, too. Typical.
Oh, God forbid that we be judgmental. Even though the left are the biggest judgmental people.
Warden. Ah, no offense.
If we let that get in the way of stopping the gods,
We won't. We cannot.
They were never at each other's throats, by the way. They literally had one perfectly civil conversation where no one even raised their voice, and now they've, patched it up. However, BioWare clearly
I am willing to believe almost everything that this guy says in his video because he did play the game. He got a review copy of the game.
want to create some semblance of conflict between team members, so they instead focus on petty squabbles. Like, here, Emmerich wants to
Because that's all these people know is petty squabbles.
bring too many books to a camping trip that Harding is planning, and Harding is upset about that. Just watch the clip.
Harding, does it really matter if Emmerich brings 8 books?
9, actually.
What? 9 books? You savage. Worse than Hitler he is.
And Emmerich? So what if Harding is fine sleeping on dirt?
Not all the time.
This is the sort
What kind of freaking dialogue is this? What kind of dialogue is
of
this?
conflict that Veilguard is constantly generating between team members, just arguing about utter nonsense. And did you see how Rook needed to sort it out at the end? He talks to them like they're children. Like, here's another example of him sorting out a disagreement between Tash and Emmerich when they're arguing about the fact that Tash doesn't like necromancy.
You two could still learn things together you'd never find out alone. Emmerich, you clearly find talking about dragons boring.
What? How? Who doesn't like dragons?
Shut up.
Aren't you curious why
That's
Tash
rude.
likes them as much as you like necromancy?
The question crossed my mind.
And maybe Emmerich could help demystify magic, Tash.
See what I mean? That is not how you speak to adults. That is how you speak
No.
to a toddler when you are teaching them to share their Optimus Prime toy with their little brother. It speaks to a
It is so stupid, man. Like these.
broader problem, that being a lack of subtlety and wisdom in the writing. This
If you guys are enjoying the video, please drop a like, subscribe, share the video because for some reason YouTube decided to stop recommending my videos after I had such great success, particularly with 2 videos that got me 30,000 views, 3,000 plus hours, 3,000 plus hours of watch time in just 2 videos. And then that also bled into other videos. People were enjoying it. I had a total of, in 3 weeks, almost 500 new subscribers. And then YouTube decided to pull the plug. And they stopped recommending my Silent Hill videos because the videos had negative imagery. That was the notification I got from YouTube, why they're not recommending my Silent Hill videos. And that's why I stopped making the Silent Hill videos. Such a great game, Silent Hill 2 Remake.
game cannot surface any ideas without just saying them aloud, which leads to this endless stream of exposition-laden personal introspection monologues. Like when Harding tells us that she's a bit of a people pleaser.
She hates it.
No, I don't hate it. It's really nice. Temperature.
I won't be upset if you don't like coffee.
See, the thing is they're trying to pack the game with a lot of dialogue so that these people feel they have somewhere to go and somewhere to relate. That's why it's important for them to be seen in video games and represented and whatever. Because ultimately, a good percentage of these people are lonely. So they look for games to fill that loneliness. And that's why they're terminally online, and you find them always on Twitter.
He really wouldn't.
I know, but sorry. It's just this thing I do sometimes.
Acting so people will like you?
It sounds terrible when you say it like that. I know I don't need to do it. I just do.
Or here, when Nev opens up about the fact that she really just wants to prove
These people could just go see a psychologist. There's a lot of programs that help people with the finance stuff. But instead they go to video games to understand why they want to please people and why they are the way that they are. Video games will not fix your problems. Video games are escapism.
that she can be relied on.
You can't count on a lot here. When I started, I wasn't going to save Minrathus, never mind Thedas. But if I could take a job and follow through, well, maybe people could count on me.
These clips alone aren't enough to convince you of what I'm saying, but I promise you that every emotional exchange has this sort of stuff in it. Rather than letting these sorts of character traits or insecurities surface through action or through the intuition of others, these characters just blurt them out all the time. There's nothing to read into or imagine about these characters because they simply tell you everything about themselves with this point-blank dialogue.
Yep.
And the way this dialogue is delivered makes this all the more painful
today.
because BioWare can't surface any of it in the main questline. All of it happens in chats at the home base or during companion missions. And this is where we start crossing over into criticisms of the game's structure. But Dragon Age the Veilguard feels extremely outdated because of its inability to unify its companion stories with the main story. This is sort of how old BioWare games were. You would pursue companion storylines that were quite separate from the main storyline, but we've come a long way since then, and multiple games, most notably Baldur's Gate 3, have shown us that you can walk and chew bubblegum at the same time. You can deepen your connection to your companions both in and out of the main questline. Companion questlines are more deeply interwoven into that main questline. It doesn't feel like you're making these hard switches from save the world mode to go and pick flowers with your buddy mode. There certainly is some of that in those other games. Don't get me wrong, but the overall calibration and pacing of it feels more integrated, and the storyline is completely on hold in that moment. This is at its worst at the end of the game, where there's a literal 10-hour stretch where all you are doing is companion quests because it's your last chance to do them, and the game doesn't let you finish these storylines any earlier, so you're just doing them one after the other. And look, I know that's very common for these sorts of games, and if these storylines were good, I probably wouldn't mind all that much, but they are not good. They are boring, and they are badly written, and they see you exploring all of the same locations you've already been to, fighting enemies and bosses you've already fought dozens of times before. It's a major shortcoming of this game. There is absolutely zero variety in mission design. It's all either walking behind your companion while they talk or killing enemies. There's no necromancy mission that sees you commanding an army of skeletons, no stealth mission with Lucanus to sneakily assassinate a target. You don't ever officiate over a joining ceremony with Davram and have to choose whether or not to execute a recruit who tries to flee. It's just lighting candles while someone talks or fighting, and 80% of the time it's just fighting. So all of this was a point about writing and how the structure of the game puts the main storyline on hold for huge stretches because the companion questlines are not integrated into the main questline, and that feels really outdated and results in some really poor pacing. And that's an example of the writing being hamstrung by the game's structure, but it also cuts a different way, which is that the structure often dictates the writing. There's multiple moments throughout the main campaign where the writing is saying aloud, "You are playing a BioWare game. Time to do some BioWare things." Like in this exchange when the team has just suffered a major setback and they're discussing why they weren't successful. Here's what they came up with.
I think we've all been distracted.
I've been preoccupied myself after discovering that hand of glory.
Bro, this is kind of being in a corporate
my new
meeting.
magic and what it means.
Why your team failed or
The
didn't
Nodus
meet the
are
sales
falling.
target.
What it means for my people.
Until those problems are resolved, we will not be prepared to face the gods.
It's like, bro, they are literally just listing side quests at this point and being like, if we don't solve these problems, we're not going to be at our A game. Like, does that really need to be said aloud? But it's something that they say again later on in a separate meeting.
Our arguments, our personal problems, it's as Emmerich says, they hold us back.
We won't stop the gods while other worries weigh us down.
I'm pleased my words
Oh, we
provided
all know how
clarity
they
on how we all
love
felt.
Like, come on, for real,
Bring
what
down
is this?
gods.
We already know we are playing a BioWare game. We don't need to be told to do companion quests. Like, how did this make it into the script? I really wish I could tell you that the main plot delivered where all this companion stuff fails, but it absolutely does not. This game used to be called Dragon Age Dreadwolf, and it was called that because the antagonist was Solus, an elven god who you fought alongside during Dragon Age Inquisition.
Now he's just
and what a brilliant
Solus.
idea for an antagonist, someone who you know intimately if you'd played the previous game. Solus as a character is also fantastic. He is deep and complex and nuanced, and as a villain, he is a rich well from which a writer could draw. Now, Solus is an antagonist in this game, absolutely, but he plays a distant second fiddle to two other antagonists, a pair of totally generic, one-dimensional, unknowable, and uninteresting elven gods. They are just straight-up mustache-twirling evil. There is nothing to them at all, and the main storyline is just about like chasing leads to find them.
There's nothing
and
intimidating about
stopping
this.
them from crafting some MacGuffin, honestly. Now, Solus still does have a part in this game, which I won't spoil, and not be less interesting. The main storyline is a huge disappointment owing to a lack of interesting missions and worthwhile antagonists. It's just a top-to-bottom disappointment. BioWare games live and die by their writing, and Dragon Age the Veilguard absolutely dies by it. And we have not yet even covered how little actual choice this game affords you, and that is equally disappointing.
Careful of him. I want to talk to him.
You and me, Rook. We chase trouble.
I'm here because you didn't listen.
Whatever's out there, we'll face it together, I promise. Together.
The promise of a BioWare game has always been a story that you can tangibly shape. BioWare has had mixed levels of success with this goal over the years, but it's remained a guiding star for them, and for all the games in this genre that sought to copy the template that BioWare initially laid down with this cinematic-style, narrative-led RPG. Dragon Age the Veilguard marks a low point in BioWare's pursuit of this goal, so much so that I really wonder if this is what they were intending all along, or if maybe like they had other ambitions, but they ran out of time and they just couldn't make them happen. I just refuse to believe that what we got here in Veilguard could have been BioWare's actual intention from the start. Fundamentally, the promise of choice exists at both the macro and micro level. In the past, BioWare games have not only let you select your hairstyle, but also, through dialogue options, shape your personality. Are you a nice guy, a jester, an asshole, or does your mood change depending on who you're speaking to? Do you make cold, calculated calls that prioritize the mission, or are you more empathetic, putting the needs of your team first? How people and the world at large react to those decisions shapes your journey. Maybe a member of the team really hates your guts and has no time for your bullshit. Maybe another loves you so much that they swoon when you so much as glance their way. Maybe a certain faction declares you a blood enemy for making a decision that disadvantages them, while another will have your back no matter what because you were there for them when it counted. Almost everything that I've described here is either absent in Veilguard, or it's so surface level that the decisions feel entirely cosmetic. The biggest gap for me personally is the inability to truly shape a Rook, a main character, that reflects who I want to be. I always choose the bad guy personality type in BioWare games because generally speaking, renegades have more fun.
Customizing my characters.
The darkness is coming. The end is near. You can't.
There is no bad guy option here in Veilguard. There's only nice guy, there's nice guy who's a little bit more jokey, and nice guy who's like ever so slightly more stern. That's literally it. Those are your only three options. Sometimes there's an additional option that's meant to be like the angry option, but what the game does, and this drove me fucking nuts, is it takes the edge off the dialogue option you've selected to make it something more friendly. Like this clip when some asshole bureaucrat barges into the conversation making demands, and I want to say, who is this fool? Because that would be an antagonistic thing to say that might result in some conflict. Instead, here's what Rook actually ends up saying.
Who is this?
This is Governor Evenchi. They have concerns.
Or this example, when I'm trying to get the head of the Grey Wardens to listen to me, and I just reach my wit's end.
Are you kidding me?
I assure you, I am deadly serious.
That is not what I wanted to say. I wanted to call him an idiot, but I can't do that because Rook is incapable of saying anything.
Look, it's my opinion that these guys, they eventually want to remove violence from video games. So this is kind of why that they're also removing options for you to be playing as a bad guy. So they're only giving you options that make you either friendly or, like he said, a little bit stern. They're not giving you options to be an actual bad guy. Like they might give you dialogue that has the word idiot, but then when you select that dialogue, the word idiot never gets mentioned. It's all about control. All right, I want to get into the action part.
That might offend or upset anyone. And this is very much the case with his team too. With the exception of one pivotal decision point, Rook cannot upset his team members in any meaningful way. In so many BioWare games and games like it, you could say some mean shit that would really piss off your companions, but here all you can do is offer support. Sometimes in a friendly way, other times in a slightly more stern way, but never can you say anything that might actually upset them. But that's not to say that you can't say things that your teammates won't mildly disapprove of, and you will.
Notice how she has clear defined cleavage, but she has pecs. Clear defined cleavage. She's got pecs.
On occasion see like Nev disapproves pop up on the left, but there's no way to do that so severely or so often that you would start to develop a negative relationship with your companion. There is a really interesting companion system kind of working away in the back end called Hardened, where a companion apparently disapproves of you so much that their offensive damage abilities are made stronger, but they won't cast any supporting abilities, and your relationship progress with them is
So this is not actually hardened, it's spiteful. They're going to continue fighting with you because they kind of have to, but they're not going to offer you any support. Because it's spiteful. Because they're spiteful losers that are making this game. And I look forward to BioWare shutting down.
Also slowed. I could only achieve this state with one companion, Nev, after making that pivotal decision I mentioned earlier. Outside of that, I almost always...
I wonder if she's the only one you can do that with. Is it because she's the most attractive character that's in your retinue, your party? Think about it, or don't.
Chose the gruffest dialogue option available to me, and I was never able to trigger this hardened state with any other companion. Oh, and by the way, I never felt the impact of Nev's...
She is more attractive than other characters that you'll see in the game.
New damage potential during combat, and I had absolutely no trouble romancing Nev even after she was hardened, so I think the system isn't quite as impactful as it promises to be. The same way that the game is unwilling to confront any darker themes, the same way the game is unwilling to create any genuine conflict between party members, is also unwilling to create genuine tension between you and your party members. So remember how in most BioWare games you could talk yourself out of trouble if you said the right things, made the right threats, if you put the work in to ingratiate yourself to a faction, if you have the right party member by your side at a crucial moment. We used to have stats for charisma and speechcraft that would make it easier whether we're trying to persuade or intimidate or deceive. Veilguard has none of those things. You cannot talk your way in or out of any situation. There are no stat checks that will test your powers of persuasion or whatever. Every outcome is ultimately determined by force because there is no scope for you to determine it by any other means. This was really typified in just something else. So how does this actually play out? Well, firstly, we're undercover, but we leave our faces uncovered while we walk around this encampment, and we're basically the only people not wearing a hood. And we've been fighting this faction for the last 30 hours, so you'd expect they know our faces by now, but anyway. Eventually we come to a dude and he's blocking the way, and I expect this might be a moment where I have to smooth talk him, and if I say the wrong thing, maybe the jig is up and it's time to fight. But nope, here's what actually happens.
Stop. Who are you? I don't recognize any of you.
You don't recognize me?
I don't.
How dare you?
Magister. Lady,
Appalling. They'll hire anyone these days.
So the best my dude can conjure in that moment is, and then Nev takes over and does all the talking for us. No chance for me to have any input into how this goes down, and when it ends, we stand right there, in the middle of these goons, talking openly about how we plan to murder the gods they worship.
It's Elganon, not Gillenane like we expected.
We are not. I'm not exaggerating when I say that outside of the companion missions, where you can decide how those stories end, and outside of the game's 2-hour finale, where you do make some serious impactful decisions, there were a total of 2 moments in this entire game where I felt like I was making a consequential decision that would actually affect the flow of events. And I know that sounds hyperbolic. You're thinking, that cannot possibly... I can't be more specific without spoiling things, but if you play this game, you'll see what I mean. Another load-bearing, choice-based system in any BioWare game is romance, and this has its own set of issues. Top line, it's just a super old, super outdated approach to player romance. It really is just selecting the heart button whenever it appears, even when it doesn't feel right for that moment, and rarely does it feel right for that moment, by the way. You just keep hitting that button repeatedly until you nearly kiss, and then something interrupts that moment, and then you come back later, and you need to either commit to that person or permanently close off any possibility of a romantic entanglement. So for me, I was flirting with everyone and I was making progress with everyone. I had every member of my squad ready to jump me, but at one point I thought, okay, let's give Harding a try. Commit to that, see what happens.
You, sir.
So here's what happens. We have a scene where we kiss, there's no sex scene.
Listen to
We can continue whispering sweet nothings into each other's ears during dialogue exchanges or whatever, but at that point, romance dialogue options no longer appear for any other character at all. There's no option to end my relationship with Harding and switch over to someone else. Most interestingly, none of the other companions, all of whom were very hot and heavy for me, none of them mention the fact that I have spurned their affections and gone with someone else. It's like all that flirting before never happened, and there's no disappointment and resentment about the fact that it led nowhere. It's consistent with what I spoke about earlier. There cannot be any actual conflict within the team, and a broken heart might make for some conflict. So instead, it's just ignored, and it really makes the entire romance system seem as cheap and as flimsy as every other decision you make in Veilguard, masquerading as something real and meaningful when it just isn't. The absence of genuine choice at both the macro and micro level makes Dragon Age: The Veilguard feel entirely on rails. The illusion of choice that is dangled in front of you is deeply frustrating because it teases
even when I play a
game that just
female
isn't there, but it was there years ago in so many of the BioWare
relationships
games we loved. The contrast between the past and present of BioWare's game design couldn't be more stark or more disappointing.
We're just going to do one of these puzzles.
So this is already a pretty long review, but I do want to touch on Veilguard's more playable elements, namely level design, open world activities, and of course combat. The level design in Dragon Age: The Veilguard is very odd. It's essentially a collection of very narrow,
the reason why
corridors.
It feels odd is because these people have never been outside,
or a necropolis, whatever. It all feels the same. The game does not have any truly open spaces that you can explore.
So that's why the world does not flow naturally.
Discoveries. This feels very counterintuitive in spaces that would naturally lend themselves to more open space, like, you know, one set near a beach or what's left of a battlefield. But funnily enough, it's actually kind of weirder in the cityscape areas. These cities feel more like Overwatch maps in the way they twist and turn and how they're connected by zip lines, and the only way to get from point A to point B is to clamber over garden ladders, and it just feels really fake. Like, these are not real places, they're just video game levels. In terms of what you do in these spaces, most of it is just combat. We'll talk about that in a second. There's also side quests.
The combat part.
These, but honestly, they were just very generic MMO-style side quests that involved going to a place to either kill or collect stuff. Because again, this game has no other mission variety other than that. Maybe some of the side quests that I didn't do are good. I wouldn't know. The ones that I did weren't, and so I didn't do any more of them after about the 20-hour mark. The other thing that you do in these environments is you open them up by completing puzzles. When you step into these levels, they're at first sectioned off, and you can expand them by unlocking a door or building a bridge, etc. So these puzzles, let me show you one puzzle you need to build a bridge.
So you hit the switch, the light, the crystal, whatever. You touch this crystal, and puzzle completed.
Now I know you think I'm cherry picking the worst possible example, so here's another one.
We need to make a bridge across there. How will we do it? Touch this crystal. Then touch that crystal. Or place it there. Bridge.
Okay, so maybe the energy cube thing is a little too heavy-handed an example. Surely there are more intricate and demanding puzzles than that. Here's one puzzle where I have to twist some statues to open a door. Just, here we go.
Those two statues are the spare key. Line up the symbols.
I'm not going to complain about the simplicity of the puzzles.
Stalking Grey Wardens. We call it the Gloom Howler.
I just want this game to be over
I have like
as fast
half
as
a dozen
possible.
other clips that are like this
So I
that are
can get
just
my
the
money
most
back.
mind-numbingly stupid puzzles you've ever seen in your life. It was like insulting to have to complete them. I genuinely do not understand how these made it into the game in this way. It's like BioWare thought that they needed to have some environmental puzzles, but didn't have enough time to make them good, or to make them
know-how.
any more challenging than like that bucket with the lid where you push the shapes through it. It's not just these puzzles that are half-assed, by
does
the
a
way, it's
square
also
peg
open
go
world
into the
activities.
triangle
So in addition
hole?
to side quests, there are also these statues that you find which ask you to complete a quick challenge to earn some permanent, bonus health. That's fine. Here's what doing one of those statues looks like.
Did he wave his dagger at it? Alright, this is directly lifted. Bro, this is exactly lifted from God of War. Bro, this is a copy-paste.
That's it! That's the
the,
puzzle! And
this
they're all
puzzle
like this. This
in
isn't
God
some
of War.
tutorial version of it. They are all this obvious and this easy. Again, why are these in the game? If I was to guess, I would say they're intended to serve as a pacing mechanism to break up
And I
the
bet
otherwise
you it
relentless
works on a
focus on
timing
combat.
basis.
And
Yeah,
that's
like
an
5
admirable goal,
seconds.
because Lord knows, like, the less combat we have to do in Dragon Age of Veilguard, the better. Combat's problems are as multi-layered as every other problem
Alright,
in this
here we
game.
go.
But the core of it
Actual
is
combat.
that just as there is no meaningful choice or variation
Look
in the
how
RPG side of
silly these
Veilguard, there's
enemies
also
look.
no choice or variation in the combat model. You will choose a class, in my case the warrior, and you'll have 3 abilities you can have on your hotbar
So
at any
much
time.
magenta.
There are plenty more abilities to unlock in the skill tree. Pretty quickly you realize that it doesn't really matter what those other abilities have to offer, because the lack of enemy variety and how easily those enemies are dodged, parried, or stun
See,
locked,
they try to
you really
blind
don't
you
need
with
to adapt your
particles.
approach to anything. I can't
So you don't
overstate
see
how
how bad
limited the
everything
enemy design is
connects.
in Veilguard. You may see enemies that look different from one another, but functionally they are almost identical, with highly...
Okay, this is one of the stupidest designs I've ever seen. I think they were trying to go for a Final Fantasy enemy look over here. So it's a box
telegraphed attacks that are easily...
with Rayman physics, so his arms and his hands and his feet float in, and the body floats in between all of them. This is Rayman, by the way.
neutralized and extremely limited movesets that cannot pressure you in any way, shape, or form. No enemy in this game possesses a unique threat distinct from another enemy. You approach and dispatch every single one of them in the exact same way over and over and over again. You can switch weapons
As
whilst
Jesse Lee
playing,
Peterson would
and
say,
that might have been an
"What a
opportunity for
mess!
BioWare to let you bind
What
new
a
abilities
mess!"
to that weapon type,
The
opening
Wicked
up
Witch
what
of
might
the
ostensibly
West
look
with
like a
no
new combat
IQ.
style that you could switch
Look at these ridiculous looking enemies.
between on the fly. But they didn't do this. When you switch your weapon, your abilities remain the same, so combat still feels the same.
Wait, did he just say that even if you switch your weapons, you still have the same abilities tied to those weapons? So one could say that if you have a dagger move that stabs, are you going to use now your Great Maul as the stabber?
Distinct from another enemy. You approach and dispatch every single one of them in the exact same way over and over and over again. You can switch weapons whilst playing, and that might have been an opportunity for BioWare to let you bind new abilities to that weapon type, opening up what might ostensibly look like a new combat style that you could switch between on the fly. But they didn't do this. When you switch your weapon, your abilities remain the same, so combat still feels the same whether I'm swinging an
Hammers and
axe or
swords are
using
the
a sword
same
and
thing,
board.
folks.
Now, to be clear, the only character you can control on the
hammer the
battlefield
nails
is
with your
Rook,
sword.
but you can issue orders to your party members. This in itself is
And
a
stab
massive missed
with a
opportunity,
club.
because it would have been really cool to be able to play as a different combat.
No life experience, no life skills, no social skills. These people are losers, and that's who made the game that we're going to waste $100 on tomorrow. That's how much it's going to cost. Canadian, it's $90 plus tax. It will be $102.
Style. But again, BioWare did not let us do that. Your party members
But
each
don't
have
worry, I'm getting
3
my
abilities
money back
that
after that. Alright, let's see how messy this is going to look.
they combine to their hotbars. And at first I was like, okay, that means I'll need to be carefully choosing which ability
Could they have made this thing like bigger?
to use at which moment, and etc, etc. But no, using one ability puts all abilities on cooldown. So instead of
That is so stupid. So you choose one special ability, You can't follow that up with a second special ability because your ability points are on a cooldown because you already used one ability.
Party members feeling like actual party members, they're essentially just another cooldown on your hotbar.
Oh, and if you... Wow, so your teammates contribute to the cooldown. If they use a special ability, you can't because they already use a special ability.
One that you can hit every like 15 to 30 seconds. What makes this worse is that the game uses a primer and
Look at what, bro, this is such a mess, man. This is such a mess. Flashing lights everywhere, particle effects everywhere.
System, where I want to use one ability on one companion because it primes a target, and I then want to use another ability
Where am I looking?
on another companion because it detonates that prime target. And these detonations deal not only...
Bro, this looks so stupid. That's going to be the screenshot. This is the combat in a nutshell. A particle mess with lights flashing everywhere, dialogue everywhere, numbers everywhere. Peak gaming.
Big damage, but also AoE damage, and so much of it that you never want to use any other ability in your arsenal. You just use the same spell combination over and over and over again, because frankly, you're playing the game wrong if you don't. So imagine you constantly spamming the same 3 abilities on your hotbar against the same repetitive enemy types while constantly using the exact same primer and detonator combo on your companions.
He should
and imagine
have
doing that for
started
50
with
hours.
the action.
There's a million other things I could say about this combat, like the frustratingly gated skill tree, which forces you to spend points on bullshit since you can only get a good upgrade every 10 levels, or the really basic upgrade and enchantment system which adds so little value that it may as well not be in the game. But I'll just finish by saying this. This is a world boss that I encountered early in the game.
This thing here, this small thing, is a world boss. Have you guys not played Diablo 4? World bosses are supposed to be massive, not just double the size of a regular enemy.
Level 10? Jeez. This thing was level 25. I would not be level 25 for another 15 hours. So that's how challenging this encounter was meant to be. Despite this, I did this encounter without dying and without a healer in my party. I just grinded him down because his moveset was so basic, so limited, and so easy to counter that all it took was time. And that's all the combat ever takes because enemies are so spongy.
Because that's actually what they do. They whittle you down, your resistance, your your individuality. They whittle it down until you give up. That's how the left operates.
And like I said, I've never done this before, but at the 40-hour mark, I took the advice of a friend who lowered the difficulty to the lowest setting just because they were so over it, and I cannot tell you how much better this experience was when I did that.
And did you guys see all those particles?
Combat did not become better, it just meant that I no longer had to suffer through it, as enemies would die in just a few quick hits instead of soaking up dozens of them.
Don't waste your time on,
my strong advice to you is that if you do plan to play this game, play it on normal difficulty for like the first 10 or so hours. By that point, you've honestly seen everything the Combat Sandbox has to offer. Every ability, every enemy type, every boss type. So just lower the difficulty at that point and focus on the story.
That's why I'm going to start off with
I really wish I had taken that advice far earlier.
Easiest difficulty, unless that difficulty means infinite health. I will feel...
Everyone suit up. All hands for the...
Bro, did they just use the word suit up? So you can tell when they started developing this game is when How I Met Your Mother was popular.
This one. So I want to be clear that the finale of this game is
the garbage mold dragon.
Actually fantastic. It's a 2-hour gauntlet, and while the combat side of it remains the same, there are multiple impactful decisions to be made. There are multiple... At that point, you've honestly seen every... At that point, you've honestly seen every enemy type, every boss type. So just lower the difficulty at that point and focus on the story, because I really wish I had taken that advice far, far earlier.
The finale of the game.
Everyone suit up. All hands for this one.
So I want to be clear that the finale of this game is actually fantastic. It's a 2-hour gauntlet, and while the combat side of it remains the same, there are multiple impactful decisions to be made, there are multiple meaningful revelations, there are multiple thrilling set pieces full of action and emotion.
So that's where I'm going to cut the video, because there's really nothing more that needs to be said about this. The only good parts I've been hearing from actual reviewers like Matty Plays and Skill Up is that the game sucks until you struggle through playing the game against your will to play the last two. For Skill Up, it was the last 2 hours of the game. For Matty Plays, it was the last 5 hours of the game. So it very much depends on how you play the game. That's going to dictate how you're going to enjoy the finale. So, like I said, I am going to be playing the game. I am picking it up tomorrow morning. I'll be making a bunch of videos, putting them out. Whether YouTube will recommend them or not, I have no idea. But I will be getting my money back as part of my Platinum membership advantage with GameStop. I will be playing it on the easiest setting because I want to get it over with as soon as possible. So guys, like really, people keep talking about this is a BioWare game, it's going to be good. No, this is not BioWare. This is Biohazard. The original team that made the original 3 Dragon Age games are long gone. This is a new team. This is just a Halloween mask. Maybe that's why they're releasing it October 31st. I do hope for the failure of the studio, because management is 100% responsible for this failure, just like Concord. Alright guys, so I appreciate you guys giving me over an hour of your time today. I really do appreciate it. If you enjoyed the video, drop a like, subscribe, help the channel grow. Hope that the algorithm recommends the video like they did the other ones. But judging by my last Dragon Age video, I don't think it will. It is what it is. I can't control the algorithm, unfortunately, unless I pay YouTube a lot of money. Alright guys, so stay tuned for the Dragon Age Veilguard videos, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. GigaVega, Michael out. Happy Halloween. Alright, that's way enough of that.